who refused to turn off the radio and just speak to us through the phone call.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 30 seconds.
Well, it's okay. I'll shut up.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the latest episode of Paranormal Encyclopedia. I've honestly lost count of where we're at, number-wise.
Got me. Math is not my strong suit.
Yeah. But I am, as always, your host, Kevin Mears, the Demonologist. We've got...
co-host Brian McKinley, author of vampire fiction and godfather of vampire thrillers.
Misha Campbell, sidekick.
And tonight we're joined by a very good friend of mine, Omnimancer and token magician, as you yourself put it, Arthur Moyer. How you doing?
Hello.
As opposed to being a Tolkien magician.
Yeah, I'm not a Tolkien magician.
Wouldn't that be cool, though?
You shall not pass. And everybody fails.
There we go.
I don't know. You seem more of Harry Dresden than a Gandalf to me.
Well, that's probably very true. Other than that.
It's the steampunk outfit.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just that. As far as me being the token magician, that was because I was on a bunch of Kevin's panels over the years, and he had an eclectic group of people there, and so I was the token magician among them.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of, has Kevin told you about the Paranormal Justice League?
No, I haven't had a chance.
Justice League? No.
Yes, we've decided over the course of these interviews, we've been collecting various people that are psychics or mediums or whatever. So we've decided we're putting them all together.
We're forming the Paranormal Justice League.
Yeah, it's going to be like kind of a really lame version of the comic book Justice League. But you can be in as the token magician. Like you could be the actual...
Like Constantine, basically.
Constantine or Doctor Strange or...
Well, Doctor Strange is Marvel. Dr. Fate.
Sure, yeah. I mix them up, but...
I know what you're trying to get at.
Yeah. Kevin, we've decided Kevin is Batman because he doesn't have any actual powers, but he's got the sort of utility belt of stuff. Which kind of makes me Robin. I guess. I didn't think that through very well when I started this. I didn't realize I was going to wind up being Robin.
The guy with the ghost box who's clearly like Booster Gold, who's another tech-based hero. And I think we decided the Caesar was Aquaman, but the cool Aquaman.
He's the cool Aquaman, yeah.
Not the lame one.
Yeah. And then we got the guy, what's it? I'm so bad with names. The Reiki guy that had the singing bowls. Where,
yes.
Like he could use them to do all kinds of funky stuff. So yeah, we've got quite a nice little.
We've got an interesting group going.
Yeah, we just all want to do it like. At some convention, we should make arrangements to all get together and we can all come in like costumes.
And all except one of us is actually relatively local.
Yeah, that's what's cool about it, is we could make this happen.
The Ghost Box guy is Midwest, but everybody else is all here, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So next time he's around, we can all like cosplay as our superhero alter egos.
So, okay, before we get even further down the road of tangents that we specialize in.
That's what I'm here for. I don't contribute anything useful. I just do tangents.
What you have to remember is not everybody knows exactly who Arthur is, or for that matter, what Omnimancy is. So Arthur,
I don't.
Why don't you explain what Omnimancy is?
All right, Omnimancy is a magical... tradition, technique, however you want to put it in this case. I mean, originally it was technique and then it became a tradition. That was formed about 26 years ago at this point. The big difference is, I guess the description only makes sense if you have a little bit more of a magical background, and let me explain that. Omnimancy is a direct magic, meta-magic thaumaturgical system. Now let me explain what the hell that means. Most current mainstream magic is what's considered theurgy. That means you use spirits to accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish. That can be anything as simple as prayer, when we talk about pagan magic, or summoning, or evoking, or invoking, depending on which direction you're going, different spirits to do your bidding, or petitioning them to do your bidding, as the case may be. So the long and short of it is theurgy is very much about you have to get a spirit to do what you're trying to accomplish. Thaumaturgy, which is more directly what I end up doing, is you're not using spirits to power what you're doing. Reiki is kind of borderline because you're supposed to be using your own energy, but I understand they use, runes and stuff like that, so they're still calling upon something external like that, and they're still thinking that there's, spirits involved and such. And it's not like Omnimancy doesn't acknowledge that spirits exist. We do. We just don't power ourselves off them or anything else like that. We don't rely upon them whatsoever. We do have means of communication with them, and that's a whole separate story, but it's very much a scientific point of view towards magic, meaning you do experiments, you see what the results are. We have means of developing magical senses, you can see what you're doing, and you can see what other people are doing too, which is kind of the point. And then it moves forward from there. So you look at a think tank that's been running for like 26 years. People come in and added ideas, and we prove them out or disprove them, as the case may be, and move forward. The part where it says meta magic, it means magic that affects other magic, meaning that we have spell work that can enhance or disable magic, even our own magic. So it sounds more complicated than it actually is. To go into actually how it works is complicated. To actually use it isn't. It's sort of like your cell phone. Your cell phone's not that complicated to use. To say how it works, you got to get into physics and metallurgy and material science and a whole bunch of other things that you go, I could never figure out how to put one together, but I can use it to call or play my current video game on it, watch my YouTube videos.
Yeah,
it's all about the cats.
It's one thing a lot of people I've commented before, I've always noticed, there is a degree, people hate when you say it, but honestly, there's a degree of magic to the way that most people see technology. I mean, I sit on my computer and I check my email. I understand how to use my computer to check my email. I understand that there's a whole bunch of science that goes into that, but I couldn't tell you how that works to save my soul.
Yeah.
So we're kind of like the guys in the lab coats on the magic lamp.
I was about to say you're like the science community, but with magic.
Yeah, and unlike, there's a lot of people out there that have been trying to equivalate magic and science, but they're taking it from a different route. They're trying to go from the science end and trying to get the magic. We're going from the magic end and trying to get the science. Meaning, it's very difficult to prove magic exists from the current understanding of physics. The closest you get is quantum physics. It shows a lot about how wacky the universe really is behind the curtain. Everything from, they came with a thought experiment back in the 60s about how to change the behavior of a particle, backwards in time. And only recently, maybe the last 10 years, have they actually been able to do it because electronics and everything else are fast enough to actually do the experiment, and it does work. So they can change a particle. Now, in their case, it's within the lab, and so those only changes milliseconds ago, so it's not that big of a deal. But the repercussions are massive, because say you have a supernova that goes past a galaxy that ends up having so much mass, that's the beam splitter, and creates the gravitational lens of it. And some idiot can sit here and move a card up and down and change something that happened
Arthur?
Years ago.
Oh, okay. Sorry, your volume went way down for some reason.
All right,
I think we got that fixed.
Okay. Is everything okay then?
Yep.
Okay. So the point is that even something like entanglement, it shouldn't exist as far as normal Einsteinian physics is concerned. That's old hat now. Quantum computers that use those kind of weird things are now becoming commercial products. And it is the quantum world is more akin to how magic sees things than how Newtonian physics sees things. And Newtonian physics is how we drive our car and worry about dropping ice cream on the floor and everything else like that, you know? So it's interesting. I see all these articles that come out on YouTube and on like Facebook and pointing to different science websites saying that, oh, such and such is now able to do this. I'm going, wow, science is catching up with magic. Isn't that great? You know, so that's kind of how we look at it.
As well as you read some of the more groundbreaking ideas in quantum physics, and it's like, do they realize magicians have been saying this for the last several centuries?
No, somebody.
Yeah. I mean, the concept of multiple realms, meaning multiple universes, is something very common in the magical point of view. From, you know, you can do astral travel, you can look from the outside of the fishbowl back in, and a lot of stuff becomes very easy, but when you're in the fishbowl, it's very hard to map things out. If you know what I mean. You think if you're a fish inside a fishbowl, and you see these big critters walking up and dropping food on the top of your fishbowl, you go, what the hell is that? And even if you can see the room that the fishbowl's in, you don't realize there's a whole outside of the house. You know? And that's kind of how scientists are approaching it, not that they have much of a choice. From a magic perspective, because we can fly out of the fishbowl and we can see the other rooms in the house as well as going outside, it puts things in a different perspective. It's much easier to grasp. Now, because you're using your own perceptions, it's going to be clouded by your own predispositions, which is why you have multiple people do it without pre-biasing them as much as possible. And so you get better, you know, double-blind, triple-blind tests to get the best data as you possibly can. Now, one can easily argue, well, you're coming from the same culture, therefore there's going to be some pre-built-in biases, and they're correct. But you do what you can with what you have. You know.
Yeah, bias is inherent in human nature, but I remember at Halloween in the Catskills, you doing the energy ball workshop.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, is everything okay there, Gene? We're good?
All right, we're good.
With the screech?
Yep.
Okay, we're fine. But, you know, it's like, okay, we're going to do this thing. I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen, because let's just see what you experience.
Exactly. Because if I tell you what to happen, then I'm pre-biasing you. Mm-hmm. You know, you will feel what I told you to feel because that's what you're expecting. That's not helping anything. You know, that's not proving anything. That's just saying how susceptible you are to my suggestions. That's hypnotism.
Yeah.
You know, that's not helpful. Because of these ideas that I've had and how far I've been able to explain them to people, my group has expanded into, you know, the international is online group. There are several other groups, you know, I'm still the head of them, but it's still one of those. It's been expanding over all these years, and all these, as people get fully trained, they become useful, they add to the research, and it goes from there. And not everybody really has the research mindset. You know, so some people are just happy getting what gets figured out, and other people are very happy contributing to the larger knowledge pool. But I digress about what it is. The energy ball workshop that you mentioned, I mean, that's the most basic of magic. You know, simply movement of energy. That's as basic as you get. What we do, obviously, is a lot more complicated than that. Which I don't know if you really want to get into one or the other, but I mean, you're asking what Omnimancy is, and I just went all the way around, and there's your answer.
I was going to say, I think the next obvious question, and this is probably the $64 million loaded question of all loaded questions on the topic, but to get people listening, groundwork, because, I mean, I've got some idea of what you're talking about, because talking with you over the years of my own research and experience, but you're losing me at some points, to be completely honest. Just because, which is the reality of the fact I'm not a practicing magician. Right. But why don't we start with the beginning of the beginnings? And I probably should have asked this before, Omnimancy, and define magic if you can.
Oh God, you ask like 10 magicians, you get like 12 answers. You know,
only 12. I'm impressed.
Magic, unfortunately, is used as a word as a catch-all. Mm-hmm. it's sort of like calling, some religion that's more in common paganism. There's no religion called paganism.
No.
There's Asatru, there's Wicca, there's, all these
and
other
for that
ones
matter,
that are
within
out
those
there.
two, there are so many derivations.
Yeah.
But it goes in the umbrella of paganism.
Yeah.
And he's out again.
Then the volume just went away again.
All right, sorry about that.
It's okay.
You're not moving away from the speaker, are you?
No, I have a landline and one a headset.
yeah.
So it's,
Odd. Who knows?
it's me. That's not
Gremlins
so
again?
go ahead. All right, well, to continue with magic, I think Alex would probably define it as magic is affecting things based on one's will. And I guess that works as a definition. People, by my definitions of things, there's a difference between being magic and being psychic. Psychic means that you can sense things, whether it be the future or magical energy or any number of different things. Magic is actually the ability to actually change those things, not just observe them. And they're two separate things as far as I'm concerned. So when someone says they're psychic, you go, no, I'm going to change something. Well, that's not technically correct, but that's personal definitions, and everybody will have them. That's a big problem in the magic community in general. There's no set definitions for different words, and some people end up switching them around, and so we confuse the hell out of everybody.
Yeah,
so you really do have to define terms for people.
Paranormal community is the same way. It's like try get a bunch of ghost hunters in a room to all agree on certain basic definitions, and it's like,
right.
Can I just herd cats? It'd probably be less painful.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. I mean, now every group says their definitions are what matters, and screw everybody else's definitions, and I get it. The problem is there's no one globally accepted group that has all the answers, so how can they be the one defining the definitions?
I agree.
And the different groups say, well, magic works this way, and the next group goes, no, the magic works this way, and this other group over here says, well, magic works this way. And, that's kind of the problem there. And then they splinter off. Someone gets a hair up their butt saying that, well, I think it should work this way, so I'm going to create a different sect of the same idea. And that happens in Christianity, and it happens in Wicca, and it happens in the OTO, and, how old the OTO came from Golden Dawn, and that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Omnimancy was more clean room, meaning it didn't come from Golden Dawn. It's not coming from those ideas. It started from the concept that, okay, you have all these different magical traditions, including pagan traditions that use magic. There's even Christian magic for that.
Yeah, I was about to say, Christian and Jewish too.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
Islamic.
I mean, you got Kabbalah when you're talking about Judaism and that kind of thing, And so you have all these things, and obviously they work for those who actually use them. Obviously they don't work for everyone, but they work for a certain group of people. So they go, okay, I got into magic because, I'm a very scientifically minded person. And so something out of Hellraiser happened to me, which I don't know if I really want to go into over the air, but it made me go, okay, magic is real, now what? And I want to protect myself because this shit is very scary. So I got very motivated. I was like, okay, well, what is commonality? Everybody has all these different views. What's the common thing? And the common thing was the concept of magical energy. So, okay, the common thing is magical energy. How do you manipulate that? How does that work? And so Omnimancy just came from the concept of moving energy around and sensing that energy, etc. And then it came also, we were going to originally call it kleptomancy because I was sitting on different people's rituals and magically observe not only what the people were doing, but what they summoned were doing. So, and then what was more interesting was watching what the spirits and the magic that they did. Not what the people did, but what the spirits did. Because remember, most magical systems are based upon interacting with some spiritual entity and then getting them to do whatever. Well, these spiritual whatevers aren't sitting there casting a circle and doing their thing like most normal rituals are doing. It's a matter of the spirits are doing things more direct. Now, if you notice, Omnimancy does not use ritual. I don't know if that was really stated at the beginning part of it, but there's no ritual in Omnimancy at all. There are no ritual implements. It's, you know, I always like to say you could be strapped to the wall naked and you still be at full power, you know. There's no necessity for grounding or anything else like that because it's just the nature of it doesn't require it. So, based on observations about how spirits do their magic, we were able to replicate that, and it kind of went from there. So it was far more interesting to see, you know, people saying, well, I'm drawing magic from the universe, and they're really just pulling from a ley line that's like down the street, you know. But from their perspective, they're getting the energy, they don't care where it came from. I care. You know, because then it's like, well, I can tap on that myself. I don't have to go do all the mystical stuff to do it. Or, you know, I can see where the magic's going, how things are operating. I mean, the best way I can describe it when you start decoding a spell is think of popping the hood of your car. To someone who has no idea how a car operates, they go, well, it appears to run some form of metal electricity, you know, there's plastic in there. And that's all you see is a glob of plastic and wires and tubes, and you go, yep, that's something all right. Whereas if you're a mechanic, you cannot not see that that's the battery, that's the alternator, that's the distributor tap, that's the air intake, that's the, you know, all these things. You can't help but not see the parts, you know? And so that's the main difference, is a matter of identifying when you see this part again, well, I saw it before, that's what this was. And that's actually how we end up teaching. You go, here's an example of such and such. So when you see this again, you know what this is. You know, and we teach them why this works this way, etc. And so it just went from there. And then once you know how to take spells apart, you know how to upgrade it. I mean, think of a mechanic who goes, okay, I'll pull up the, you know, the air intake and put this other, you know, larger air intake on, or, you know, put some other type of, you know, turbocharger on it or something else like that, if you know what I mean.
If you want to improve anything, you've got to understand how it works first.
Exactly. And so that's, Omnimancy at this point is like 26 years of that, with a bunch of people working on that. And so it's gotten a lot farther than I make an energy ball and move it around. As you might well imagine.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very different approach. And I've had a lot of people, even from the mainstream community, go, what in the world I just look at? But they see the results, and they feel it in their hands. Like, put some of the higher spell work in their hands, and they go, yeah, this is not just energy. There's something very, very strange about it. It's just different. Because Omnimancy uses what we refer to as tech, which are basically magical machines. I mean, the best description I always have, I have this on my website, that think of if your purpose was to build, you know, to do a pool in your backyard. You know, you got to dig a hole in your backyard to put a pool in, right? So you can go out there with your bare hands and start digging. It does work. It will take you a long time. And the only way you're going to do it any quicker is you grow stronger, right?
Yep.
Then you can go to the next step up, which is a simple machine, such as a shovel. And while you can tweak the shovel, you know, put a bend in the handle, put like an actual, you know, place to grab the top of the handle, put something you put your foot on, so you can put the shovel deeper into the ground, much easier, etc. So you can tweak it, but in the end, it's still a matter of the only way you're going to make it more efficient is you grow stronger. Yes, it's more efficient than with your hands by a lot, don't get me wrong. But it's a very simple machine. You're using leverage and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's still human power that makes it work.
Yeah. And now that could be equivalent to those who understand magic as like something what we call thought form, if you will. But it's still what I refer to as raw world magic. Then you get to Omnimancy, where it's sort of like, okay, I spontaneously manifest as a backhoe. All right? I flip a few switches and turn a couple knobs, and this giant claw comes down and pulls up that hole really quick. And for the effort, all you did was flip a couple switches. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what's even better is you can rip apart that backhoe and turn it into a go-kart, if you knew enough mechanical ingenuity to do it, because the parts are all there. That's where the whole Omnimancy comes from. That backhoe required everything from metallurgy to hydraulics to electricals to material science to get glass and that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? It's all these different disciplines all put together to make this one effect, which at any point you could rip apart and do a completely different effect that has nothing to do with the first one. And that's what Omnimancy is. That's why it's called Omnimancy. It's all magic. That's the idea of that. I know the Latin people will go, well, that's Mancy is supposed to be about divination. Well, if you think of necromancy, you're not thinking they're divining by the dead. Although technically that's what it's supposed to be, but in modern terms, they say necromancy is not what your mother meant by go out and make some friends.
Wait, it's not?
It's hard to raise a family these days.
Yeah.
So you get the idea there. And like I said, it's difficult to explain. It's easy to do. I've done a lot of lectures, and I've done even video PowerPoint presentations to try to explain the science of it, for lack of a better term. And even some of the more simplistic ideas about like alternate power sources and stuff like that, I've helped people who already do magic almost immediately improve what they're doing. And like I said, we've advanced far past that. So something as simplistic as an energy ball, all that's supposed to do is train you the very, very basics of, how to move energy, how to sense energy, that kind of thing.
It's magic 101.
It's magic 101, very basic thing. The old Karate Kid, wax on, wax off kind of thing.
Okay, we're coming up on the end of the half hour, so I wanted to give out the phone number in case anybody wants to call in with a question. So it's 609-802-2492. That's 609-802-2492. We're speaking with Arthur Moyer. It's Hamilton. You're listening to Hamilton Radio on Channel 2. But
you can also go on our Facebook group and ask questions directly.
Yep, I've got Facebook open. If you ask a question there, I will be able to read it and ask it.
Yes.
I guess a mini AMA.
Yep, ask him anything. Although that could be dangerous.
Yes.
Danger.
Oh, yes. I mean, you ask me a question, you'll get an answer.
It's like, I don't want to summon Cthulhu again. He gets cranky.
Something like that. So, what else you got?
Let's see.
Because we just went over what is Omnimancy. What else you got?
And what is magic? Well, I guess it's an interesting question, if nothing else, in discussing the concept of what is magic. I like that you distinguish between magic and psychic, because at least to me on an instinctual level, it always seemed like something different.
It's a different set of tools. I mean, that's the other big thing, is Omnimancy, be able to sense and mentally see what you're doing is a very big part of what we do. We teach magical senses from the get-go. And it is something that there's no quick way of doing it. It's simply practice. But most magical systems, if you have any senses, it's a bonus. Meaning, a ritual is like a recipe. You're expected to do this, that, and the other thing. You're expected to chant a certain way. You're expected to do these things in a certain order. But they kind of go through it blindly and hope for the best. And don't get me wrong, it works for the people that do it, but they really can't normally see it.
To make a pure joke, you insert sacrifice chicken here, spell comes out there.
Yeah. That generally. I'm not saying that the more experienced magicians don't have senses, but they didn't. That's not required for their magic at all. Omnimancy is very much required for it. If you can't really see what you're doing, you have a harder time. How are you going to decipher? How are you going to figure out what you did wrong? I mean, one of the things I always had the most fun with was, I remember one student, she had a Wiccan background. And that's the other thing. Omnimancy is non-denominational. So we have everything under the sun, everything from Wiccans to Ossatry to born-again Christians, believe it or not. Obviously, they're open enough for magic, but I mean, it's one of those things where we don't, because religion doesn't enter into it, it's something separate. But in this case, the lady, because she had a Wiccan background, was all about the normal magical elements, their fire, water, that kind of thing. So I asked her, okay, I want you to go find the closest ley line. I gave her the description of how to go about doing it, and hook it into her energy ball so it would be powered off the ley line instead of herself, so that would grow in power. And so I watched what she was doing, stuff like that. And so she tapped in on this local stream. And the ley line is like that kind of thing. And so I said to her, okay, why'd you choose water? Why'd you choose a stream? And she rocketed up out of the chair and got completely freaked out. Because she didn't tell me that that's what she was going to do. And she was so used to people talking out their butts with this kind of thing that she was surprised, like, how the hell did you see that? Well, I told you I could see things. That's the point. That's the whole point of teaching you the same thing. But it didn't click until that moment for her.
The way he does know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, because unfortunately with anything, you got people who have no idea what they're doing or what they're talking about. They just say that.
And they claim that they do, yeah.
And as you've commented more than once, how many master magicians live in their parents' basement?
Yeah. I mean, there are so many people who are like the most powerful thing in the multiverse, and they live in their parents' basement. And it's sort of like, really? And then the back thing on that one is like, well, I'm putting all my effort into learning magic, and I don't have time for material things. It's like, you are so full of whatever. First point of knowing you have a successful magician, does he look a hell of a lot younger than he actually is? All right? That's the first point. Why you think, back in like, Christian burning days, so to speak, where they were going, okay, you're in league with the devil, you look so young. Well, of course you do. The first thing you usually use most of your magic on is your own personal health.
Makes sense.
The more you get ill and stuff like that, the faster your body ages, just from like the damage it takes. So if you're not taking as much damage, you stay younger longer. You grow old a lot.
Hey, Beth, I'm sorry to interrupt, Arthur. I got a comment from the chat. Apparently, we're getting a terrible echo.
We've been having that. We can't figure out where it's at, even whether it's on his end or ours. We've checked everything.
Weird.
All right, so just for reference, they're aware of the echo. They're trying to fix it. To heck if they know how. Why does that seem like a very fitting analogy for what we're talking about?
Yeah, it sort of does.
Magical tech support. Have you tried turning the spell on and off again?
Have you tried turning the universe on and off again?
Yeah. Have you tried turning it off?
You gotta hit the universal reboot button.
Exactly. Yeah.
There you go.
Which raises fascinating philosophical questions of, if somebody had, would we know?
Yeah, maybe it has happened.
Well, you wouldn't know. Now I'm getting a echo from my phone, so when I say something, I hear it back to my earpiece.
So it's traveling.
But now it's going again. Okay, so that's a big correction then.
Good.
So we'll see.
Yeah, the longer you get into this stuff, the more questions you get. Like, what if the entire universe got reset? It's like,
you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the reality. One of the things that I figured out, everybody goes, well, you would think that magic was real, why isn't it proven scientifically? Well, they have, that's not where I'm actually trying to go with this, meaning at this point, when you do experimentation, the experimenters are now part of the variables. Because, like the simple scientific
uncertainty principle.
The parapsychology experiments have been doing since the 60s and 70s. They looked at the metadata of it. They say, okay, here's believers in this concept. They get actual, looking at the data, shows that psychic powers exist, even if it's only very slight, off the middle, outside of the range of error. If a person who's a skeptic who does it, they get the standard statistical data. And even though they did the same experiment, but yet, if you have more people who do believe in this stuff, do the same experiment, they get results. And it's not because they're reporting the data incorrectly. I mean, it's observed.
Yeah.
And they've actually found that the person who does the experiment now actually has to become part of the variables that are considered. Because they've looked at hundreds of experiments now throughout decades, and it's consistent that if the person is a skeptic, it's then it's exactly what you expect from the statistical, averages. If they are not a skeptic, then it's outside the statistical averages. It's almost like the same observation when you think of the double slit experiment, where there's an opposite observer. It's a particle. It's not an observer. It's a wave. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's that kind of weirdness. If you get to like quantum eraser experiments, it gets very complicated, regardless of religion. Part of where I was trying to go with this is I did an experiment to figure out why spell work works to a certain degree, meaning why it's scientifically hard to prove such a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is the universe is static throughout time, unless it's operated by an outside force. And the problem is we're all outside forces, if you know what I mean. The bigger problem there is most people don't take advantage of the fact that they're an outside force. A magician obviously does. If you do prayer work, that's kind of like being a magician. You're doing an outside force. But here's the thing. The universe likes to reconfigure itself as if something was always there. So the example I always give is sort of like, okay, you expect your paycheck on a Friday, but you want it on Wednesday. You cast a spell, 20 seconds before you get to the door to get your paycheck. You open the door, and there's your paycheck. Well, it's Wednesday, and obviously you shouldn't have been there, but there it is. Your spell won't work. Okay, fine. But if you should use to go poof, a little imp and come over and go, here you go. That's not what happened. What happened was the spell work went back in time and created a series of synchronicity events. That, some guy at the mailroom was like going on vacation or had whatever, and they quickly did their work earlier, or any number of different things. And so through a series of coincidences, it happened to arrive early, but that means I had to go back in time to change it. And I went, okay, well that works, but how do we prove this? So I did an experiment where I had a very, very simple concept. I mean, you did the energy ball workshop, as you saw. I just had an energy ball that would just flash like, a disco ball. Every few seconds, every 5 seconds it would flash. All right. So I put it into the future. Because when you do astral travel, moving back and forth in time is not that big of a deal. Now, the reason why this experiment came up is I got to a certain point where my senses saw these multiple frames. I didn't know what that was. I mean, they looked like multiple universes, so I was like, okay. I never liked the idea of the multiple universe theory, because to me that means you have like infinite exponential energy. I mean, it's great sci-fi, but it shouldn't work that way. So every quantum decision spurs off the entirety of the new universe. That would be ridiculous. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it either for different reasons. Yeah. It does make sense.
So I looked at this and went, well, I'm seeing multiple universes of the same identical universe. What does this mean? Let's devise an experiment. So I put an energy ball 2 minutes into the future. Was the idea? It was just there in flash, looking at all these different frames at the same time. And the first question is, why wasn't it there already? You know what I mean? If I'm putting something into the future, why wasn't the ball there already? All right? It wasn't. When I actually finally cast the spell and put it there, a ripple went out in both directions of the other frames, and all of a sudden, it was there. And then in the other frames, they were in different stages. Some were closer, some were further away. And what that told me was that these frames I was seeing were of time. But more importantly, if the ripple had only gone one direction, and it had been there from that point forward in that one direction, that would become the conclusion of the multiple universe theory, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But because it went both directions, not only is it now that this spell was always there, but that meant that the universe reconfigures itself every time you do some sort of spell work, as if that always was going to happen, even though it wasn't. Which explains a lot about how the different spell effects work. Which also precludes certain tests, because if you do a test and your instrument says, well, it was always there. How do you test something that, well, of course it was always there? I mean, because you're using the same material thing to test something that just got shifted along with everything else. Your consciousness exists outside of it, so you saw the observation that it changed. I mean, how many different things? I mean, it's the meme online. Like, don't you remember, or all these people remember this past historical event being different? You know, or some jingle or whatever. Well, maybe it actually was. You know. And that's the point, is that, you know, past history and future history is both malleable. And, you know, that's the constant to wrap your head around. Well, of course, future is malleable. It hasn't happened yet. But we mean the past is malleable. Well, science can do that now. They don't do it with particles, but they can do it. You know, they're not building TARDISes yet, but I mean, they can do it on a particle level. You know, so if a particle can be done, why can't something macroscopic, once you figure out how to make it work, be done?
See, what I find interesting here, Arthur, is I've been thinking about this concept in general lately. Because particularly, I've been watching a lot of atheists and skeptics on YouTube, and I've been thinking about the idea of divine miracles. And there is a school of thought that's been floated. For example, the 10 plagues of Egypt were actually caused by a volcanic eruption. And some people look at that and go, okay, well, all these supposedly miraculous events in the Bible were not miraculous. They were perfectly mundane. They're just a volcanic eruption caused all these distortions. And then you can also look at it as a perspective of, or maybe God just caused a volcanic eruption, took care of all 10 plagues in one go. And then following that thought further, it's like, well, volcanic eruptions don't happen out of nowhere. It's a process that builds up over time. It's like, well, if God, if you're dealing with a God that's outside of time, he could simply have started the process millions of years ago, knowing he'll need it in the future. But also the idea of, well, if God knows he needs a miracle now, just go back in time and set up whatever he needs to cause it to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier than you would think it would be to go back in time and just change it. I mean, the nature of things allows for it. Our normal view of physics, you go, well, that's possible, but it's not. And, you know, quantum physics has already shown that it's not.
Well, just the very concept of time is a dimension, not just a linear progression.
Yes, I mean, my view of time is another spatial dimension. It really is.
So I guess I have kind of a question then, which kind of goes the other way, but it's something for me that always comes up whenever dealing with it. So what about all the times that it doesn't work? Like,
well, the whole thing is that, all right, we sit here and we go, why do we watch people do sports? Okay? We watch people do sports because the human body and the human mind is not perfect. And yet, we admire perfection. So when an athlete doesn't quite make the pole vault or doesn't quite score the goal or something like that, it's like, well, he's human. You know, he's not a robot. You expect a robot to have exact repeatable results. The problem is that we're human. There's so many variables involved. And we even expect even experiments have a certain percentage of error because they know that they can only get so precise. No one's sitting here claiming that all the variables are known when you're talking about magic. They just don't know it. And especially when you're talking about spirits, it's sort of like asking a horse to do something. Yeah, you can have a trained horse, and most times they'll do it, but they see a snake or see a weird shadow, they freak and they run, they throw your butt. You know what I mean? And then what do? Well, you had a failure. Well, it didn't work all the time, therefore it doesn't work, it doesn't exist. It's like, well, the horse flew me. What do you want, man? He saw the snake. Well, you didn't see the snake. No one else saw the snake, but damn, the horse saw it. You know? So that's the problem. It's not meant to be a cop-out. It's simply a matter of any science will tell you there's a lot of variables that they cannot compensate for because they don't necessarily know about them. Yeah. So to put it naturally to that level of expectation isn't exactly fair either.
Yeah, I guess it's just with me. What makes me a skeptic is for whatever reason, somehow whenever I'm there, it's the time it doesn't work. You know.
Well,
I'm always the guy like, no, this works and it does.
That is something that affects things.
Boom. Nope. And I want to believe. I want, like when I went to I was at the demonstration. And everybody else had like, you know, a ball of energy in their hand and they're like, this is awesome. And I'm sitting there going, you know, yeah, I want to believe this. This seems really cool. And I got nothing, you know, and like nothing I can do makes it, you know, the times I spent a year or more for various things, but I got very religious and I tried praying and doing all this stuff. And, you know, I put my faith in in God and all that, and nothing, not one thing came through. You know.
I think sometimes.
No, I appreciate it. I always tell all my students, don't believe me. I could be a charlatan. Prove it for yourself. It's for me to give you the tools. It's for you to prove it for yourself whether I'm unfolded or not.
One of the reasons I like you so much.
Yeah.
It's a matter of there is no one right answer when you're talking about. I was, like I said, I was very much a skeptic like yourself. I just got into a situation where it was something out of a horror movie. And I needed something on that level for me to believe that magic was real. That something simple as, oh, I feel something in my hand. No. A friend of mine got possessed up in front of me, and I don't want to go into the whole long story about it.
Sure,
but
it's not a pleasant experience.
It's pretty epic out of a horror movie. And to live it, it's sort of like, okay, it's an anecdote. Any of your listeners will go, okay, well, that's a nice little story, Arthur.
Yeah.
But if you were there and you lived it, and there were lots of other people with me, there was about 8 other people, they lived it too. And at that point you go, no, something's weird. This is not, some weird drug or anything else like that. This was real. What are you going to do about it? And that was my motivation.
We had it for Too Many Games, as we were talking to, and he could not wrap his head around the answer of, we weren't on any drugs, when he goes, well, how do you know it wasn't drugs?
If you've never taken a hallucinogenic drug in your life, you know for a fact it can't be a hallucinogenic drug.
Right.
Right. And there are certain things that happen that, this anecdotal. I could say all these different stories. Are like, okay, I was buying my house, and anybody's bought a house, they know they'd love sneaking in different, like, thousands of dollars closing costs out of nowhere for this thing and that thing, this weird fee over here. I didn't have the money. So I cast a spell. And lo and behold, like, $2,500 shows up on my doorstep in a check. And it's like, okay, well, that covered everything. But you have to go, it's like, where the hell did that come from? Well, I was a computer consultant, doing software development. And the previous place I had worked, in New Jersey anyway, at least at that time, did not consider computer consultants professionals. Professionals don't get overtime pay. They just get straight pay if they work past 40 hours. If you were a computer consultant and you worked over 40 hours, which, as people know, is not uncommon, you were supposed to get time and a half. Well, they never paid me my time and a half. Some more recent consultant complained to the IRS. They audited them, and they forced them to write not only penalties, but write all these checks to past employees who they had records of for working overtime. That's where the money came from. But that was from something that I did 7 years ago at that point.
But it happens.
And it's sort of like, but timing-wise, I go, I need this money. I cast the spell. What the living F is this?
Which is a lot of
it was actually there.
See, I would accept that. I understand that sometimes it's going to take the form of a coincidence, but I've always been frustrated because I don't get the coincidence.
That's the thing. A lot of the time, though, is it's true of magic, I believe, as well, but it's also particularly true. Well, less true of magic because you're actually actively doing it. But when you're dealing with God or a divinity and you're asking something else to do it for you, things happen in God's time, so you may not see the upshot of a prayer for months or years later. It's always been my personal experience. Prayer gets answered. Not always in the way that you want and not always in a way that you expect, but usually something eventually happens. God has a better understanding. It's that long view of history. It's that view Arthur's talking about of seeing parallel universes and the extensive timelines of what you want now is not necessarily what you need.
Yeah. No, and I've heard that argument before. My issue with that argument is that pretty much means that you might as well just not bother because it's either.
Well, that's sort of like, pray to Joe Pesci. That was George Carlin's thing. It's 50-50, same as, I might as well play to Joe Pesci. And I get that. I get that argument. It's one of the reasons why I don't usually like to deal with deity to accomplish what I accomplish. They might be good sources of information, but I wouldn't want to ask them for a favor like that. Do it yourself. I'd rather do it myself. I mean, it's like you can teach a man to fish, or give a man a fish and he'll eat for the day. Teach a man to fish, he eats for the rest of his life.
Well, it's more just addressing Brian's question from a more religious perspective. And to answer, I think, as well to get slightly off topic, but as to why do it, at least for me, the reason's pretty simple. I find comfort in belief, in faith. Lots of other people do. Some people don't. I'm kind of a find what works kind of dude.
Yeah, I was kind of looking for help. So when God, there's all these stories of people. When I needed it most, suddenly God showed up and fixed everything, and my life went better. I'm the opposite story.
I've had some weird coincidences, but I've never had that. Oh my God, melodramatic an experience.
Yeah.
Well, outside of
Anyway,
I will admit,
That's actually what's attractive to me about magic is I would like the idea of being able to make things happen for myself. I'm sick of relying on
somebody else to do
some
the
imaginary force or whatever and hoping that things work out.
But you have to keep in mind, magic is work. Like anything else in life, you get out what you put into it. You're not going to sit there, pick up a book, and all of a sudden, rule the world because you picked up some guy's spell book. It doesn't work that way.
Why not?
I mean, the flip side is that I've been doing what I've been doing, like I said, for 26 years, and I have reaped some very heavy benefits from it. I have some really bad, screw-ups along the way. Don't get me wrong; it's a learning experience.
Speaking of,
and I've learned to roll with it. But Kevin knows me. He knows some of the things that are going on in my life. He can easily attest that, yes, there's some pretty screwed up good stuff that's going on in my own life.
Indeed.
So I have manifestations like, well, have you been able to achieve this? Like, yes, I actually have. And here's my proof.
Yeah.
And so I am not the guy who's living in his parents' basement.
I was about to say, I'm not going to go into your personal details because that's your affair.
Sure.
But I will say, Arthur is not the master wizard in Mom's basement.
No.
Yeah. I've accomplished quite a bit, and I'm still accomplishing things. Very recently, as a matter of fact, I have started my own video game company, which has always been a dream of mine.
Right.
And I'm able to self-finance it.
And obviously, this lends some credibility to to what you do and your claims, which is great because that's usually what's lacking in this sort of thing is any sort of tangible proof.
It's also.
Do you know what's better proof?
Speaking of anecdotes and bad experiences, Kevin brought up maybe you should tell the story on air again of the fire in the house.
Oh, geez, not that guy.
Just because it's such a fun story.
I do want to say one thing. Someone else brought up a very good point. You shouldn't necessarily look at the head of the order to see how well they're doing. You should look at the students to see how well they're doing.
That is a really
That's the proof in the pudding.
Yeah.
Because if the head's doing it, they could just be scamming the students. If all the students are still reaping the same levels of benefits, they go, oh, okay, something's going on.
Yeah, and that's...
And you can look at, Kevin, you've met my students. You can judge for yourself, again, how their situation is.
I like a lot
but it's like anything else.
Pretty much all the students of yours I've met, actually. And they all seem to be doing pretty well.
Yeah, they're all in different stages, but that's true of anything in life. But getting to the story that you want to hear, which was someone who actually spoke
the
at
fire
one of my
insurance
conventions.
story, as I think of it.
Yes. And he's very proud of this.
Which is the best part.
Yeah, he's extremely proud of this. He was a Christian magician.
Like
I don't know if he's
cautionary tale, but it's not.
As far as I'm concerned, it's a cautionary tale. In the concept of be careful what you wish for because you get it. Now, Omnimancy has a thing we refer to as the astral loophole, which is how to get what you want without actually getting any kind of backlash for it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Meaning, magic is like water. It will find, or even like electricity, it will find the path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
All right? And so we're all about defining paths you don't really want it to go because it can cause some really effed up directions. And there's been lots of stories over time, as you might well imagine, different students not putting enough effort into that or it going in the direction they didn't expect. But in this case, this guy went, okay, I have these bills. I need money, like several $1,000s, like $10,000 or plus. All right. So he casts a spell and he summons some spirit. The end result was his house burned down with everything in it. The insurance paid out enough to get a new house and pretty much and he had an extra $16,000 at the end of it. So yes, he gained money, but he had to go through all that just to gain that extra bit of money.
Yeah.
You know, so that's kind of was the problem. It's sort of like, okay, you know, yeah, it worked, but was that really worth the way you wanted to get it?
Well, it's why you do things the way that you do, Arthur, where you put in those, no, we're not going to have it happen this way. You're very, it almost, with respect, reminds me of being it's like old school D&D player wording the wish. You've got to close up all those little loopholes.
You have to become the astral lawyer, as we call it. You have to.
Or when you make
because if you don't, it will go in a direction you don't want to. You'd rather have a spell not work than royally screw up.
The traditional genie. The kind of like, oh yeah, I'm going to grant your wish all right, you know.
He got what he asked for.
Monkey's paw style.
And most remarkably, he's happy with the results.
Which, you know,
no, he is.
He
considers it a win.
He did get what he wanted, and if he's okay with it, then I suppose it wasn't.
Nobody died.
Yeah, I suppose it wasn't that
No
bad.
one died. You know, but I mean, I can't imagine going through all that. I mean, I suppose my problem at this point is I want more than I should. I do get it. But the road there is sometimes rocky, not to that extent by any means. But I mean, it's a matter of magic changes you. Not only does it change your perspective on the world, but it changes you as a person because you need to become a certain level more responsible for your own actions. You can't just go, I want X, I want Y. You have to understand the wisdom. Is that really the brightest idea? You know? What are the repercussions if you actually gain this, you know? And so you have to gain a certain level of wisdom. If you don't, you will self-destruct.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of what it is. So it's not just that everybody gets in the magic, oh, yeah, I'll become super rich, super famous, you know, get all the ladies or men, depending on which way you go, you know, and I wish. And it's not that simple, you know. I mean, in my case, you know, it's sort of like everyone goes, oh, I want the perfect woman or I want the perfect man. Well, here's the reality. If you want the perfect woman or perfect man, you yourself have to be perfect because otherwise they're going to come in and then immediately leave.
Yeah.
And if you're not, that's it, you know? So by casting, saying, well, I want this person of this level, part of how that's going to manifest is to make you go through different life events for you to learn how to become that level of a person yourself, which can be in and of itself trying to become a better person on the opposite side of that. So you have to understand what you're really asking when you ask for some of these things. And that's the wisdom that goes along with what you do, and people don't see that when they first get into it. They only see well, I should be able to do this, I should be able to do that, I should have like the Donald Trump lotto. And it's sort of like, you don't need all that, you know?
Yeah.
It becomes different. It's not simply about material gains. It's about changing. I mean, some people get in the magic where they go, well, I'm just here to change myself. I'm trying to evolve. Well, okay, that's fine too. But, you know, I want to live in comfort. There's nothing wrong with that. I want to have good health. I want to have a good love life. I want to have a good everything else. Why not? You know? But you don't have to ask for success either.
For wanting it in your life.
There's nothing wrong with wanting to live a comfortable life.
Well,
along with it, great cosmic wisdom.
Well, and there's a difference between saying, you know, okay, I want to make enough money or whatever to live comfortably versus, oh, I need to have billions of dollars. Well, no, you don't need to have billions of dollars.
It's like if I ever was going to start like a religious monastery, I'd start one in like not a tropical, but a nice warm, not too hot, not too cold. Because it's like, why do you need to be freezing your rear end off to find enlightenment? Basic human comfort level here, people.
There you go. You don't need to be in like, you know, Kilimanjaro or whatever. You know.
You're meditating on top of the Mount Everest to figure out the meaning of the life. It's like.
But I will say this, that people have to understand when they go into magic, it is work.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of hardships in the process because you have to change your worldview, and it will change it for you, and that's not pleasant, you know. Yeah. And that's life. Life will happen to you anyway. Magic just makes things a little more understandable and controllable. It will certain things you can't avoid, but it also means that it doesn't have to be hyper damaging either. you know. And you may not understand why certain things have to happen, but maybe your powers will let you understand them and therefore handle it better. That kind of thing. That's the advantages of it. It's not, I mean, as I said, I've been doing what I've been doing for 26 years. I wouldn't have kept doing it if I wasn't getting good results out of it.
Yeah.
But to me, it's also just as much of a hobby because I'm a curious person. I'm a scientist at heart. I want to know why things work, and I like fiddling around with things. I mean, Kevin's seen all my little gadgets my watch and stuff like that. I love the little things, you know.
Yeah.
But people go into for different reasons. Certainly, what I do, for example, is not spiritually fulfilling. Meaning, Omnimancy, as far as that goes, is not that's not designed for that. I personally am a religious. You know, they don't have a word for what I am. I mean, in my case, I know deities exist. I do not worship any of them. You know, which to other people say, well, what do you mean you don't? It's like, just because I know they exist does not mean I have to worship them or believe the origin story, so to speak, to the same degree as other people might, you know. And it's a different concept. It's not agnostic, because I know they exist. It's not skeptic, because, again, I know they exist. And it's not like I worship them, and therefore I'm not a believer, so to speak. You know, so what am I? They don't really have a good word for it. I'm an Omnimancer. So one of the reasons why...
You're an Arthur, that's what you are.
I am an Arthur. But more importantly than that, when a religious person comes into Omnimancy, once they get trained up enough to astral travel, I'll take them to go visit their deity. You know, sort of like, you know, you've been told how you should approach this individual all your life. I mean, not necessarily all your life, but as long as you've been in this particular religion. All right? That is from people. People are flawed.
Oh, yes.
You know, whether it be Christianity or Islam or Asatru or Wicca or any religion you want to throw at you, is still coming from a person, their interpretation. Think of how many different versions of Christianity there is, how many different versions of pretty much any religion you want to think of. If someone said, I don't believe this, it should be this way with a slight dot over here and cross T over here. You know?
Part of me wants to go visit the flying spaghetti monster.
So that'd be cool, but I would say, I would think that would be a very dangerous thing to do because you know that old adage, you know, never meet your heroes. How much more does that have to apply to your deity? You know, the thing you've worshipped all these years.
I actually have stories about that.
You go and then like you're like, wow, you're so disappointing in person. Like, you know,
well, that's
you're not at all what I thought you'd be like.
Well, what happens is this: one of two things happens. And I have a story after this that actually kind of backs it up to a certain point. It's a matter of, it depends why you're religious. Are you religious because you were brought up that way and you were expected to be, or because you're a true believer? So one thing or the other happens. Either it dismisses your view of religion because now you see the fact of it, because now you're talking to an individual. It's sort of like meeting your favorite rock hero. And it's like, oh, wow, it's Alice Cooper, and so whatever. And you realize, yeah, he's like, you know, looks like spaghetti like everybody else, and puts his pants on one side, he's just human like everybody else. And when you go to a deity, you realize that, you know, they're flawed, they're people too, they have their wants and desires, and so it doesn't change the power level, it just means that people don't perceive it that way until they're there, and then the varnish kind of goes away, and they go, what? You know? I mean, some people go like, we're not worthy, but usually most deities don't want to deal with that.
Just like Alice Cooper.
No, as a Christian, I'm just thinking of Jesus and somebody doing the we're not worthy bit, and it's just like...
Jesus just face palming. Like,
and
a man is known
it's like,
for
congratulations,
humility.
you've made Jesus face palm.
So, pretty much. But the flip side is that if they are religious for the right reasons, now it's fact. Now it vindicates why they were that way in the first place. So it's one or the two.
Arthur, I remember to say this, but we do need to start wrapping things up.
Oh, yeah. I'm going forever about this stuff.
We'll have you on again.
Trust me, you'll never get through it all.
No, because there could be we could do a great episode just talking about like magical theory and various
No, we're going to have Arthur on again.
Yeah,
you've been, cool. Thank you so much for coming on, Arthur. You have been a great guest, as I knew you would be.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So one last question, and before we wrap up, because this is a good question to end on. Suppose somebody wanted to learn more about Omnimancy.
Yes.
Where's a good place for them to start?
Plug your site.
Is there like a website or anything like that?
There's a website. It's called www.omnimancy.com. And everything's there. There's a forum there. There is a translator there if you're from a different magical point of view to sort of translate terms, if you will. Oh. There's an overview, and like there's many years worth of people asking questions. So if you have some questions, they're probably there in one sense or another in the forum somewhere. And of course, you can always like post your own question. Mm-hmm. So that's the best place to go.
So again, that's everybody. That's omnimancy.com. OMNIMANCY.com.
Yes. Spirits of the underworld are standing by to take your calls.
Calls for Cthulhu! Yay!
So, that's going to wrap us up for tonight. I do want to do a couple quick plugs and let everybody know what the state of the show is at the moment. So, this weekend, it looks like at the moment Sunday. I don't have a date yet. Keep it on. Those of you who are interested, go to us on Facebook, Paranormal Encyclopedia, and I'll keep you updated. I'm going to be doing a Google Hangout with atheist YouTuber Chocolate Hat talking about the science of evolution. It should be a lot of fun.
I was going to say, you have a fiance. You don't need a date.
But he was going to call in tonight. Unfortunately, he's in Wales, so this is really late at night for him. Yeah. We're going to find a more pleasant medium of time between the two of us for Sunday. Coming up, not this weekend, but the following weekend, of course, is Wicked Fair. That's wickedfair.com. Brian, Amisha, and I, and you too, Arthur, I believe, right?
I'm going to be there.
So we'll all be there.
Princeton.
I am doing, Brian and I, and we're going to drag Amisha in on it too, are going to be doing a live taping to go right onto YouTube.
Yes.
So if you want to come hang out in person, you can do that. That's at 5 p.m. on Friday. That's February 2nd. At 11:30, so that we will be running over into midnight. We'll be doing Talking with the Dead. We'll have the Ghost Box, and we'll have my EVP recorder. We'll see what happens. And then Saturday at midnight, I'm going to be doing a Mentalism Magic Act.
Ooh.
And I just bought a whole bunch of props for it. Should be very exciting. Our next show, keep an eye again on the YouTube, on the Facebook rather. We may be having a guest if he's available. He's going to be really busy next week, so probably not. Otherwise, the next thing we're doing for certain is going to be an open talk. We're going to do a Just Us talking night, and we're going to be talking about spirits, ghosts, demons, angels, giving everybody a rundown of what those are, and then we'll be segueing from there into future shows, talking specifically about demons and angels and ghosts and fairies and all the other various types.
Yep.
But that's it for tonight.
Be like a cool game show. Name that supernatural
Exactly.
game.
This is Kevin, your demonologist in Paranormal Encyclopedia, saying good night and God bless.
Brian, your weird author friend.
Amisha.
And there's Arthur. Good night.
And Arthur the Token Magician.
Yes. Good night, everyone.
Good night.